You could power a large city with the electricity around college baseball this time of year. Hunter Pence, Daron, Sutton, we're thrilled to be bringing you a brand new edition of Perfect Game College Baseball. And the reason is, Hunter, you've obviously got supers, and we'll talk about that with Craig Cozart. He will join us. You've got coaching changes, dreams coming true. But our first guest is a national champion. Early this year, we had College of Central Florida's Marty Smith on. The two of you took off, and you had anecdotes. You're a JUCO bandit. You're a JUCO alum. I loved your conversations. His team won it all at Grand Junction. I can't wait to reconnect with them.
I mean, absolutely. Just a solid, amazing human. 30 years in the making. He's been working at this, just putting in the work. And I can't wait to hear, and talk about the journey of a lifetime because, you're the best in the world at what you do. To win a JUCO World Series is something special. And it couldn't happen to a better guy.
Certainly a land-breaking decision. And as Kerrick Jackson will share with us, he wished it wasn't that way, but he's thrilled it's that way. The first black coach in the Southeastern Conference is Kerrick Jackson. He has worked so hard to get to this point and certainly now serves as an inspiration for so many. But he's about to get to work. That's really what he wants to do is go and win baseball games. We'll have Kerrick Jackson on this show.
Yeah, I mean, he's a pave maker. He's changing the game. Just an absolute incredible leader, incredible mindset. And it's just exciting to see, him. It feels like all the stars aligned. He's meant to be here. His family's ready to be there. And, he's got big intentions and big dreams. So just an absolute pleasure to see Kerrick Jackson get this job and excited to get to talk with him and talk baseball. One of the greatest leaders of our time and one of the greatest pave makers the U.S. has, if you ask me.
Yeah, and it's cool. Goosebump moments in this conversation. You'll want to listen. But my favorite part was Hunter talking with Kerrick about the family discussion, if it's okay to take this job. Craig Cozart will join us. We're going to talk about supers. We're excited to get into that. That's our show. Incredible guest. And then super regional conversation. This is Perfect Game College Baseball. Here we go. Out of Ocala, Florida, Central Florida, the national champs, and what they were able to accomplish, having an opportunity to connect with Marty Smith, who we talked with earlier this year. Number one going in. They had a loss along the way. They are the national champs. Some crazy games, by the way. And Marty spends time with us now. Marty, thanks for hanging out with Hunter and I. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Tired, but happy and still just feeling it.
I can't even imagine. There's some social media stuff I'd love to ask you about with your son and your staff. So many ways I want to go. But the first way I want to go is just when you stand in that dugout, because all coaches do it, they don't dogpile. They're much wiser than that, us guys at that age. But then you get with your staff and you look out at those young men. And I always find it such a beautiful moment for a coaching staff. Heck, when Hunter won a World Series, his manager, Bruce Bochy's staff, they hugged, they watched the guys go crazy. What was that view like watching your players celebrate?
Not like what I thought. I don't know. Long hugs, 5 coaches, long hugs that were, 30-something years in the making, maybe a tear or two. And then looking out and watching that pile just start to form and the outfielders just start to get there and knowing that I have to go over and shake my opponent's hand, who was also did a good job. So couple things there. So everything's so fast. You enjoy it a little bit. You remember it a little bit, but you remember those hugs and then looking out and watching those guys and they're just getting up and they're giving them their T-shirts and hats and just a quick, 1 minute synopsis that you got to go back and watch on the video to really take it in and enjoy it and see what some guys did and laugh about that and remember it and maybe tear up a little bit more, but nothing like it. Never done it before. So it was pretty cool.
What an amazing story. What an amazing journey. It's funny because it is one moment and it's 1 minute and it's happened so quick, but like you worked 30 years for this. This is not just the one season journey, but this memory will last your lifetime. You have been the best in the world at what you do forevermore. And can you talk a little bit about the journey of, let's say, the 30 years and the 1 year, like that transition, and what was so special about this year besides obviously being the champion?
We went out. I started coaching. My first year as a head coach here was 95. So in my third year and my fourth year, we went to Grand Junction. Went 0-2 the first year, 1-2 the second year. Very difficult. enjoyed the stay regardless. Grand Junction special. They do it up right. You play in front of a lot of fans, committees that take you from rent-a-cars to team parties to whatever. And the just going out there is really, really good. So the next 22, 23 years, I wake up from dreams in the middle of the night at least 10 times that I'm in Grand Junction. Everything's great. And you wake up and dang it was a dream. Finally, in 22, we get back. It's not a dream anymore, but we did go 1-2. Got beat twice by teams that played very well. And we were good last year. We were pretty talented. We have guys all over the country playing really well at the highest levels of Division I. So get back this year with a really talented club that I actually told in April, and I've never said this before, you guys could win a national championship if we get better, keep getting better, working hard, and take care of the little things that might do that. So I've never said that before. And then we won our conference pretty easy. We won our region pretty easy, which is our state tournament. Didn't lose there. And then went to the district and didn't lose there. And just it started feeling like it was attainable. So you go out there as the number 1 seed and you got this big target on your back. And I think there's something where the number 1 seed hasn't won in 20, 30 years, something like that. Maybe I heard something differently, but it's tough. We win our first game by a run rule in 5 innings. Then we get drilled. We get drilled by the 8-run rule after 7, and they played really well. Weatherford swung the bat, bad pitching matchup. They just drilled our guy. Had to bounce back the next day, and then won 4 in a row, and just our talent started taking over, and we took that butt whipping we had and used it for whatever we needed it for, and then we played well the rest of the tournament. Had a big comeback win on a Friday night to get in the championship. And once you get past down 2 with nobody out and nobody on in the 9th inning, and come back and win, tie it, and then win it 19-12 in 12 innings in the longest game in Junior College World Series history, 5 hours and 19 minutes. You get to bed at 2 in the morning, then you got to win the next day, and you do. Then things become a little bit easier, I guess.
Wow. Talk about resilience. You mentioned, they were talented enough. You never said this in your whole career. Hey, if we do the little things right, we could win a national championship. And I agree with you. I didn't know the stats of like being the number 1 seed, not winning the tournament for so long, but like being the number 1 seed and actually following up is one of the hardest things to do, because no one likes to be told in sports in general that someone else is better than you. And so like that is in and of itself is a psychological advantage. So like what was kind of the mentality going into Grand Junction? Obviously, like you said, y'all, the journey was wild. And I do want to hear about that game getting to the championship. But first and foremost, like what did you come into the tournament telling the guys?
Getting out of Florida is tough. And even getting out of Florida as the number 1 seed is tough. And it just doesn't happen a lot. But these guys were different. We lost some games in the middle of the season. We were 52-6 maybe going into the tournament. So we had a couple losses. We had a couple losses to teams that we shouldn't have lost to, and they handled them really well. And there were no, panic buttons pushed or anything like that. They handled it well when we had comeback wins. And no matter what we did, this team bounced back really, really quickly and just handled those things well. So once we got into the tournament, we had our regional tournament, we had a target on our back and scored 9 in the first of that game too in a regional tournament, and helped us relax a little bit, obviously, and handled that well. And then a team had to beat us twice, and we didn't want it to get to the second game, so we handled that one well. I think we won 7-3 in that game, and none of them were really close. So extremely talented, handled it well. Had a little bit of depth, lost a big hitter before that region tournament. Another guy stepped up. This team just had some kind of mentality that it didn't matter. We were gonna do something really, really special. We ended up doing that, and the mindset that they were in was just something I didn't talk about a lot. It just was there with this group, a great group of talented kids, and a group of kids that could handle the wins, the losses, the big wins, the tough losses. I don't know how we would have reacted if we lost that Monday night game in front of 11,000 on a walk-off. It was almost better to get run ruled in that Monday night game and come back and just say, hey, we lost. I'm sorry, we didn't lose. That team beat us. They beat our ass, and it is what it is. That's what we've been doing to people all year. So we got to turn into that, and they kind of did. So nothing special as far as these kids just had a pretty good mindset that they were talented and confident, but not too cocky. And that run rule loss, it affected them a little bit. And I thought we came back really well from it.
We can extol the challenges or virtues of social media all day long. And as a coach, I'm sure you deal with it. But this was one of my favorite tweets right here. And it's from your son, Ryan Smith. I'm so proud of my dad for winning the national championship, an incredible group of players and coaches who work so hard and do things the right way. The outpouring of support from the Pat community shows how truly special that place is. That, to me, is beautiful social media. I know you guys talk personally all the time, but you had to be proud to see that as a father.
Yeah. He's the hitting coordinator for the Twins and scheduled his time around it. He went to the Dominican and Wichita and St. Paul and Minnesota a lot over the last 2 weeks to be able to free up a tiny bit of time to get out to Grand Junction and watch Pops play. And he's my son, but I agree with him. It's fun around here. We do things the right way. And we've had 5 or 6 other coaches that are in pro baseball, including one of the pitching coaches for the Royals on the big league side. I got he had a great tweet as well, and I got a great message from him. And those guys are the ones that started us on this trail of player development and getting kids better. And the things that we do and the things that led to this were all of those guys we have in pro ball and all of the guys I have now that will probably end up in pro ball, teaching us the right way to develop kids and get them better and stronger and everything we do. The byproduct of that is I think we're 92-10 in our last 102 games. Sure, we got some great players, but we want to get players better between the state tournament that ends on May the 12th to the beginning of the national tournament, which starts on May the 27th. And these kids buy in and do that and continue to lift and get stronger. And it's just what we do. And it's not real difficult. It's not real difficult. You just, you get in, and once you get the culture of the players that work and they see how things are and how far the ball goes and how hard they can throw and the ground balls that we take and just the basic stuff that we do to get players better, it leads to wins and a lot of fun.
That is really well said, Marty. And I 100% agree. And you say the right way and you say simple. To me, and this is, I don't want to read between the lines. I want to hear it clearly, but it sounds like consistently lifting weights and getting stronger, persistence and consistently doing the skills work. As far as the development that paid off in these next 2 years, I want to dive a little bit more into that. Is that just what the recipe and the formula is get in the weight room consistently, have a plan, and do the little things right?
Yeah, we live 4 times a week. The kids get bigger, the kids get stronger. The ones that don't fall by the wayside and either become a backup in the fall or do not make it after the fall. We bring in about 36 kids and end up with 26. So it's, survival of the strongest, I guess you'd say. And we hit a lot. We make BP very difficult. They hit off machines. They hit off big, tough, hard breaking ball machines, the small hack attacks, a lot of machine hitting, a lot of frustrating hitting, especially in August when they get here. But then they learn and then they see it carry over to the game, and then the ball goes farther. And now live game pitching is a little bit easier because I'm not seeing comfy BP all the time. And we challenge them. It's tough. I mean, it's not a lot of fun at times. And it takes a lot of time to set up machines. It takes a lot of time to drag out cords and put a couple machines on the field and challenge these guys. But once they do it a few times, they're either climbing to the top or they're complaining that their hands are hurting and I don't want to do this anymore. So that'll that'll separate some dudes from some guys that just don't want to, go through that to maybe be the best hitter they can be. But man, our lineup was so tough 1 through 9. And even when we lost a couple of kids to injuries, so tough 1 through 9. And it's all attributed to the great coaching staff that I have, a hitting coach named Jason Rose, who's gone through some interviews with pro teams and will get a pro job probably this pro off season, and just challenging hitters, preparing hitters. It goes a lot. It's not easy. It's hot in Florida, but we hit a lot. And we challenge them to hit a lot. So that with the weightlifting and what we do, not a lot of eye wash. We do our PFPs and rundowns and first and thirds and tandem relays and all that stuff. Not as much as we used to. Very, very small, pick and choose when we're going to do them. We still screw them up. We still screwed them up when we did them 4 times a week, each thing. So we just kind of looked into that crystal ball and said, hey, this is what's going to help us more. And man, we want to get kids to the best places they can go. We got them going to Tennessee, Mississippi State, Oklahoma State, Charlotte, Texas State, all over, Louisiana, Lafayette. If we can get kids to go there, then we're pretty good and we're doing it the right way. But we're doing it kind of backwards. We're doing it to get these kids as good as they can and get them where they go. And then a byproduct of that is we've won a lot of games over the last couple of years.
Yeah, Marty, I remember you saying that the last time we talked, and it's unbelievable to see it come to fruition. Man, it's exactly what I love to do, is get on those machines and like hurt your hands until they get tough enough. And like, that's the only way you learn. And man, it's so beautiful to hear. And I want to dive in one more. I had another thing that you sparked on me when you talked about the numbers of Brian Holiday, this many strikeouts and this many innings and what he did in the tournament. But what was he featuring? What was he doing it with? Because it's one thing, everyone says throw strikes. Well, sometimes strikes just get destroyed. This guy's throwing strikes that you cannot hit, which is one of the hardest things to do in baseball. And if you ask me, that is how you win championships, is having pitchers that can do such a thing.
And not a lot of balls.
Yeah.
is amazing. Fastball up to 5, probably pitches at 2 to 3. Had a little hop in Grand Junction, and I wanted to talk with some of the gurus to see, is that a thing? Does hop improve in Grand Junction in the Colorado weather? But it looked like it did with the naked eye. I don't know if they had TrackMan, Hawkeye, or whatever out there. We certainly didn't have our Yacker Tech on, but it just seemed to be, and our catcher seemed to think it was plus curveball that he had all year. He developed a slider, started piddling with a slider about probably early April. And in his first outing with the slider, we had a scout leave for the Diamondbacks that said, man, I'm leaving here putting 55 on that slider. And it's the first time he's thrown it. So he developed that. And if you see his starts for the last 4 or 5 starts, it was a lot of swing and miss, a lot of strikeouts, a lot of less pitches, and a lot of more efficiency. He threw less pitches and just a ton of swing and miss with that slider. And you know how it is, Hunter. If you see a pitcher with a curveball and a slider, that throws a little bit more of a piece of the puzzle at you to just be able to sit maybe on 2 pitches. Now it's 3 and a plus slider. So those 3 pitches, piddled with a changeup every once in a while against left-handers that he was okay on, but just fastball, slider, curveball in the zone, competes like crazy, and a lot of strikes.
College of Central Florida. They are the national champions, the pride of Ocala. Marty, thanks for stopping with Hunter and I. Congratulations on what you accomplished. We loved your anecdotes earlier this year, and we love hearing about now who your team is. So congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys. It's wonderful. It still hasn't set in. Too much crap to do to unload bags and receipts and get travel done, but it'll settle in, and I can't believe we're national champs. And my kids were I told them halfway through the year, and I can't believe they actually listened to me, that and executed, and just it's great. We had a blast, and thank you guys for what you guys do.
Congrats to Central Florida. Incredible stuff. When we come back, the journey of Kerrick Jackson as he now moves to Missouri, a place where he cut his teeth as an assistant. Wonderful story, Hunter and I, when we return. This is Perfect Game College Baseball. Kerrick Jackson goes to Memphis. They win 29 games last year. They step into such a positive state. And then obviously there's a buzz around his continued growth as a coach, which from afar has been fun to follow for a couple of decades. Really, the success he has left everywhere he has gone. And Mizzou saw that. And Mizzou wanting to climb in the SEC made that call. They made that connection. And Kerrick is their new head coach. Kerrick, thanks for spending time with us. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me on, Daron.
Can you sum up kind of the joy with family? Obviously, there are challenges to moving. We know that as a husband, as a dad, we understand that part of it. But the joy, too, you cut your teeth there for 5 years. This is your part of the world. Missouri is you. Can you kind of sum up your joy and your family joy upon landing this job and being the right man?
Yeah, again, I think the best way to say it is it's great to be home. My wife and I were married here. Or I should say when we got married, we were living here. Both our sons were born here. My oldest, actually, my wife went into labor in 2011 during the Big 12 championship. So there's just a lot of history and great memories. And so to be able to return back to this place, and a place for me, like I said, this has been my goal. This has been my dream job. And so to be blessed with this opportunity to return here and lead this program to great things, I couldn't ask for anything more.
Really well said, Kerrick. And I thought it was an amazing story. You've been moving, you've been on the move, you've been having a lot of success stories and putting in the work. But I thought that this conversation with your kids, because moving kids and being a kid that moved like 12 times before I graduated high school, it's tough on families. Can you share a little bit of that conversation with your son, Zion, and what he told you?
Yeah, you know what? We were riding in the car, and they had a tournament that day, and we were in a dead period at the time, so we couldn't do any off-campus recruiting. And so I was there and got a chance to see both of them play that day. And so we're riding home, and they had a sleepover that night before, and just said to them, I was like, "Hey, how was the sleepover?" And they're like, "Oh, it was good." And they're like, "What'd you guys do?" I said, "Oh, me and Mama just had some guest over." And they're like, "Oh, who was over?" I was like, "Blair was there." And like, "Oh, okay." And I said, "And the AD for Missouri." And they're, "Well, why was she there?" And I said, "Well, she offered me an opportunity to come and be the next head coach at the University of Missouri." And he said, "Well, you got to do it, right?" And I said, "Well, I just wanted to check with y'all and make sure you're okay with it before we made that decision. But yeah, I got to do it." So yeah, they're excited about it. And yes, the moving and the transition of it is hard, and made friends, and now moving and leaving those friends. And but the one thing I told them both is, this is the place, and this is the place that I can tell them that we're going to be here for a long time, because this is the place that I've always wanted to be. And now that I've gotten here, I'm not leaving.
That's amazing. And it's so cool. Like, all the stars aligned, you worked, you earned it. And now, it's time to start getting to work. And one of the things you said that really inspired me, and I can relate to this a lot, is, they were talking about the facilities with Missouri. And you said, look, it's about our guys to have the right heart and determination and the intestinal fortitude to take us to where we want to go. And can you describe a little bit about like your mindset on like, how do you instill determination, heart, fortitude? There's obviously recruiting, there's also development. And I would just like to hear a little bit more on your thoughts on that comment in particular.
For sure. I mean, it starts with the idea of how I grew up, right? And I grew up and we didn't have a lot. My wife gets on me all the time. I probably have shirts in my closet that are 15 years old, but it's one of those deals that when you get something new, and you don't often get new things, you appreciate what you have and you take care of it to the best of your ability. And at the same time, my grandparents always taught me we're never going to be victims of our own circumstance. It is what it is. And if we use different reasonings for our lack of success, then we'll always put ourselves in a position where our ability to be successful will be dependent upon the environment that we're in. We're sitting here, we're having these conversations. As a Black coach in college baseball, if I got disgruntled or upset about all the opportunities that I wasn't getting, I wouldn't be here having this conversation with you all right now. So at the end of the day, our guys have to understand, as long as we're not at a extreme disadvantage with regards to, hey, you know what? When you come play here at the University of Missouri, our mound is 65 inches or 65 feet and 6 inches as opposed to 60 feet, 6 inches. If there's something that was completely off, then it's a different story, but we don't have that. And you look at our time that we spent at Southern University. When I got to Southern University, we didn't have tees. Hitting at the local high school was the norm because we didn't have cages. And those players there, we went from 9 wins to 34 wins and beat LSU. The game that we beat LSU, we were taking water off the field for 5 hours before that game so we could get that game played because we knew if we canceled it, LSU wasn't coming back. So there was no way we were going to miss out on that opportunity. And so as you continue to elevate and have more, then let's not complain about what it is that we have because there's people that are in a lot worse circumstances than we are that are successful.
Boy, what an inspiring answer. I'd love to know what communication you've had with your new team. I mean, there's a couple guys that their names are in the portal and maybe they changed their mind, things like that go on. But kind of your early stage communications with your new team, the guys that will be back with you next year.
Well, kind of what I told them, we were able to have a Zoom with all those guys. And I said, listen, I didn't recruit you. I understand that. You didn't commit to play for me. I understand that. But if you're going to get into the portal, you're going to go through a transition and change anyway. So if you're going to go to another program where you're going to have to go through this transition, you're going to have to get familiar with the institution. You're going to have to find a new place to live. You're going to have to get familiar with the coaching staff. Why not investigate what it is that we're about and what the direction of our program is going to be? Because there's some things that are already here that are familiar for you. And now you have to decide do you want to play for me or not? As opposed to new coach coming in, I'm jumping in the portal. Well, you're adding a whole bunch of things to the equation that don't necessarily need to be put into the equation. So let's be smart about what it is that we're doing. Give me an opportunity to recruit you. And if you don't like the way that I recruit you and where we're going, then say, hey, you know what? This isn't for me.
Talk to me a little bit about building a staff. I mean, you had a strong and supportive staff at Memphis. Now you go to work in building your staff. For those that don't understand how it works, how you put it together, how has that gone for you early stages?
So it's gone good. As you guys can imagine, whenever there's coaching changes, everybody wants to work there, right? You get all kinds of text messages and emails and resumes and recommendations from scouts and all kinds of people all over the place. And for me, at the end of the day, we have to find people that will be on our staff that are strong belief in teaching the game, right? And then after we teach, then there's strong belief in development and coaching. And I think we have to teach before we coach. And so to get guys that understand and have that philosophy, that's what will put us in a position to be successful. And as long as they're great teachers, then we're going to always be in a great spot. And as long as they understand the idea of our job is to grow young men at the end of the day. Coaching baseball is the easiest part of our job. Getting somebody to be a better hitter, better fielder, throw a better slider, that part is easy. That's not difficult. It's us being able to teach and develop all those things that take away from your ability to be successful in the field, which is going to put us in a position to be successful.
Wow. It's amazing. And it's something you don't hear a whole lot. You want to dive into development. You want to dive into physicality and, skills. But, the teaching part, can you give me a little bit more of I guess you just hit me with a lot to take in. And I want to know a little bit more, what are some of those, is this basically that heart, determination, principle, character? Is that the teaching that you're talking about, Kerrick?
Of course. And at the end of the day, we preach the idea of how you do anything is how you do everything. So your attention to detail, understanding that there's steps to the process, that we can't focus on the goals, right? Because they're result driven, that we have to perfect the process to put us in a position. And so it is all those things, right? The idea, if you're a great fielder, but you don't have a high attention to detail, you're not mentally disciplined or you're not mentally tough, eventually you're going to find yourself in a situation where it's the ninth inning, right? With the winning run on third base with 2 outs in the inning and the ball is going to be hit to you. You could be the best physical player with all the best attributes in the world, but if you lack mental toughness and attention to detail, the thought process is immediately going to go to don't mess this up instead of make this play. And so getting our guys to understand that you have to be in a better position mentally than you do physically, that's where the teaching and the development and those things come into play.
Yeah, Kerrick, it's so inspiring and I just like absolutely refreshing and exciting to, it makes sense why you're having a lot of the success. I believe in a lot of these things. I'm huge in the mental department. I want to dive a little bit more into, obviously the journey at Southern and what you're able to accomplish there. That was one of the coolest stories ever. Then obviously Memphis, another 29 win season. What did you learn kind of in those two journeys? And it sounds like you've already kind of hit on it with having to hire a whole new staff. There's just a lot of work here and it feels like you've done it a lot. What are some of the things you learned in those two journeys that you can improve on here in Missouri?
I think for me as a leader, as I've come to know, at Southern, you wore all the hats. Right? Like you had to do it all there. I didn't have a director of player development. I didn't have a director of ops. I didn't have any secretaries. So I'm doing it all. And because of the pay structure, you're also dealing with young coaches that don't have as much experience. And then, I had to obviously go to Memphis after being in the draft league. And the draft league taught me a lot, right? Of being in a leadership role and being president of that league and how to delegate and manage different personalities and requests and the financial part and all those types of things. And then you get to Memphis and I do have a director of ops who's, Al Woods is a legend, right? Like dude's been in the game forever, knows everybody, has everything handled. And what I've learned about myself as a leader is I need to give more direction with autonomy, right? As an assistant coach, I never wanted to be micromanaged. So I was always big in, hey, I'm not going to micromanage people. We're all in this profession, go do your jobs. What I need to do is I need to give more direction. And then now as I'm elevating to this position, it's even more paramount and understanding that more direction, more autonomy, because now being in the SEC, it is truly about being that CEO, right? I love the game. I love coaching the game. I love teaching the game. I love being involved with players. But now I have to make sure that I have all the pieces in place that will allow us to be successful and they're all able to do their jobs. So the little bit of time that is carved out for me to do some teaching and coaching, I can spend doing that because the majority of my time is going to be spent managing everything that's involved in this program.
For several of your stops, you have served as a lighthouse for young Black coaches out there to walk in your footsteps. And now you jump into the SEC where, we are told by the world and by the RPI, it's the most prominent conference there is, and understandably so. Being that lighthouse for you, does that give you joy? Is it a wonderful challenge alongside doing your coaching day to day? Because I'm sure there are a lot of unique communications where you can mentor, you can guide, you can encourage. Being that lighthouse for young Black coaches, you're now really stepping into that forefront, even more so, Kerrick.
No, you're 100% right. And it's twofold, right? It's that double-edged sword. It's 2023 and we're talking about first. That's a problem, right? But it's 2023 and I've been blessed to be the first. So that in itself is inspiring. When being at Memphis and being the first Black head baseball coach at Memphis and going to church or the grocery store and having people that of color saying, hey, I've never been to a baseball game before, but I'm coming. Right. I'm gonna come watch. I want to see what you guys are going to be about. And now being in this position and like you said, the SEC, the most visible athletic conference that there is in the country. And this is going to be a national type deal. Right. And so it's going to be inspiring to many. And you're right. I do carry that torch and understand, one, it's not about me. Two, that I do know that people are out there watching and they are rooting for our program to be successful because they want to see us be successful and understanding what that means. At the same time, I understand there's people out there that don't want me to be successful because of those reasons. And so being able to balance that and getting our kids to understand that they're going to be involved in something that is going to be history making, right? The ultimate goal as a coach for me is to be the first Black coach to take a team to Omaha. We're going to get to Omaha. That history-making moment is going to take place, and they're going to be part of something that is national history. And how many times can you say in your life that you ever had a chance to be part of national history?
I'm sorry, I was going to rap. Hunter, I'd love your rapping comments because I saw you pump your fist.
I mean, it's just like you feel the power. Like I have chills. Like, and I know you're doing the mind work, and it's just like one of the coolest stories ever. And you're right. It's 2023. We should be ahead of this, but you got to start somewhere. And that the dream and the intention and the energy behind that, yeah, man, thank you for who you are, what you're doing. And I know you got a lot of work ahead of you, but I get excited hearing that. And then when, we get to follow the journey and hopefully cover the journey and just wishing you all the best. And thank you for everything you're doing. And that was really the fist pump, is just following, that energy and that power in that statement. Thank you, Kerrick.
No, I appreciate you guys taking the time and putting me on.
Thank you, Kerrick. God bless you and your family through this journey, my friend. Go get them. Can't wait to see what's next for Mizzou.
Appreciate you. Thank you all as well.
We'll take a look at all the teams and how they may be doing in their super regionals. What's that Oregon Oral Roberts super regional all about? We'll find out when Craig Cozart joins us. Perfect Game College Baseball. Who in the world predicted Oregon and Oral Roberts? None of you did. We'll be back in a moment. So we go from a junior college national champion to the first black coach in Southeastern Conference history, and already that's a show. I mean, it's an incredible show. But there's this thing, the super regionals, you've all been watching them. You've been eating, living, sleeping. I know Hunter has, and I know Craig Cozart has, and he spends time with us now. Craig, thanks for hanging out with Hunter and I. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, great to be here again, guys. Appreciate the opportunity.
So Alabama's story, and obviously for them to go through what they've gone through off the field, the coaching change through the season, some stuff we just do not talk about on this show, but the positive is that they're here. They're at their super, and they push their way on through, but they're dealing with some arms. I mean, what Wake Forest does makes me say, and I said it in the pre-production meeting with Hunter, does anybody beat them, period? I mean, with those kind of arms, do they ever get beaten? So talk just a little bit about, certainly, if you don't mind, Alabama, but I'd really love to celebrate again the growth of arms that we've seen all year with Wake Forest.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, obviously Jason Jackson, what he's done there at Alabama since taking over, he's 13-4 since that time. And, a lot of times it's difficult to be the pitching coach and the head coach, which he's acting as right now. But since that's happened, they've actually pitched at a different level. During that 17-game streak, I looked at it. They have a 3.05 team ERA, and that ERA for the year was a 3.96. So they've actually pitched better. During that they have 10 games in that stretch of 17 where they've given up 2 runs or fewer. So just an amazing job there, and really exciting time for Tuscaloosa to get some postseason baseball, the NCAA tournament, for Alabama to sweep through that. And then, of course, they get the draw of having Wake Forest for the Super Regional. But it's going to be very, very interesting for sure. And you just can't say enough about Wake Forest. It's absolutely amazing what they continue to do with their arms. We've really not talked about Seth Keener very much this year because he's been their midweek guy. But Seth Keener, he throws game 1 against George Mason in that regional and goes 7 innings pitched with 13 punch outs and their 12-0 win. So that's their number 4, essentially. And then you roll with Rhett Lauder against Maryland, and he takes care of business. And then the Hartle and Sullivan show in the championship game where they went a combined 7.2 innings pitched and punched out 16. So it's just a glut of arms. We didn't even get into their bullpen right there. That's just their starters. And then if I can, just real quick, you look at 2 guys that we haven't talked about on their roster very much this year, Justin Johnson and Danny Corona, and they absolutely had sensational weekends. Corona didn't even play in game 1, and then he goes 4 for 8 in the next 2 with 3 home runs and 10 RBIs. And Justin Johnson had 13 RBIs, and 2 home runs. So, that just speaks to the depth of their roster in all aspects, offensively and defensively.
Yeah, Wake Forest just sliced through that regional, and I think Daron mentioned something, and obviously there's a lot of baseball, and this is the most exciting tournament in all of baseball, if you ask me. Obviously playoff Major League Baseball, but the 64, the regionals, the super regionals, there's enough electricity to light the earth, if you ask me. Daron said a city. I say that electricity and the emotion of these college baseball teams and regionals and super regionals is nuts. And I want to hear a little bit. I guess I saw so many things that I'm excited about, and I'm going to try to bring this back for you, Cozy. But Texas showed up in these regionals. A lot of the Texas teams. Now, only 2 got through, TCU and Texas, but A&M was in the finals, almost took down Stanford. Texas Tech and Florida, went to the last game as well.
Right.
Tell me, when early in the season this year, we were talking is Texas any good? All these teams, we had not that much confidence in the Texas schools. What happened here? And then TCU specifically, what's the guy's name? I wrote it down here. Trey Richardson.
Yeah.
And just that offense, they just dominated that regional.
Yeah, we'll touch on that TCU offense in a second for sure. But let's talk about Texas. We were basically at the beginning of the year, I think they started 3-6, and we were just saying, hey, it's a rebuilding year. Remember, they got absolutely gutted by the draft. They lost an entire lineup essentially, and they had a bunch of new arms. And they go down to Coral Gables and they sweep through that regional, which Miami was playing outstanding at the time. So, let's not forget that they played in the championship game of the ACC tournament. So, but the pitching staff, 28-6 strikeout to walk ratio in the 3 games down there. They only they only gave up 3 errors. So that was 9 free bags that they gave up in 27 innings. That's really, really clean baseball, right? And that's what they had to do down there at Coral Gables. Dylan Campbell, 5 for 12 with a home run and 4 RBIs. He really set the tone for them in the middle of their lineup. Texas is dangerous. They're playing really, really good right now. And I don't really think anybody wants to see them. So Stanford's going to have their work cut out for them for sure. And we definitely need to touch on Stanford, and what they've done, historically is pretty amazing if we have time. TCU. Insane. Yeah. Trey Richardson batting 600, right? 4 home runs. He had a 3 home run game, 14 total RBIs. A lot of teams are happy if they score 14 runs in a 3-game regional, but he drove in 14 by himself. The offense went absolute crazy, averaged 14.6 runs. So you might as well say 15 runs per game, and batting .413 as a team. They hit 10 home runs in 3 games, and they swept through that Fayetteville regional, which is saying something. They had to beat
Arkansas, number 3.
Yeah, so, absolutely amazing. What Kirk Saarloos has done there is pretty cool. Remember, we were wondering about what TCU was when Florida State went in there the second weekend of the year and beat them 2 out of 3. And then they really kind of scuffled, but they played an outstanding non-conference schedule, and it prepared them for what they're doing now.
Beautiful. It was exciting stuff. And I'm glad you mentioned Stanford, because they're just the steady Eddie, always there. And it's going to be that regional is going to be really fun for me to watch. I got to hit on something that you were very correct in. And I asked you for, we mentioned Tennessee. We're like, yeah, of course, Tennessee, you don't want them in your regional. Who's the other host that you look out for? And you mentioned old Southern Miss. And lo and behold, those arms came through, and I think they had to go through the hard way. I believe they lost their first game.
Yep. Yeah, they did. So it was funny because I basically, and I don't want to sound like I'm brilliant here. Maybe I got really lucky.
But pretty brilliant this time. You were brilliant. You hit the nail on the head, and it's exciting, and I got to let them know this week.
So, Tennessee, let's go back to what they were 4-12. On the road this year, 1-2 at neutral sites before this weekend. That's a horrible record, right? It's amazing. And then they sweep through the Clemson regional. And of course, they ended Clemson's 17-game win streak. Let's not forget that. And so the pitching staff for the weekend, 2.25 ERA, 32 innings pitched. Remember, they had that 14-inning game with Clemson, 41-11 strikeout to walk ratio. We talked about the fact that they have the best pitching staff in the nation as far as starting rotation and depth, other than maybe Wake Forest. Now we got to give Wake Forest their due, but they're finally pitching that way. And I think they kind of have to feel like they got that monkey off their back as far as how they play on the road. Now, they get to go to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I would love to be there. That place is going to be unbelievable. Scott Berry's last go around, are they going to take him to the College World Series? That's an awesome story in and of itself. But Mississippi State, as you mentioned, Hunter, had to win 4 consecutive elimination games. Okay. And that was against Auburn, Stanford, and Penn. And what a great run Penn had, by the way. Okay. Let's not overlook that. But to win 4 consecutive elimination games to win that regional was amazing. We have to talk about Tanner Hall. He was our pitcher of the week a couple weeks ago. He's legendary from a starting rotation standpoint there in Hattiesburg. But Tanner Hall started on Friday, got a no decision on a 9-inning, 1-run, 9-punch-out game. So he got a no decision because of an extra inning game. Threw 123 pitches on Friday. Guess who started the game yesterday? Tanner Hall. Just as an opener, okay, and you have to respect what they did there. He threw 30 pitches, got them off on the right foot and on their way to victory. I think just emotionally, they probably knew that the crowd would respond to seeing Tanner Hall run out there, that Scott Berry just said, you know what, we need our dude to go out there and set the tone, and he did that for the first 2 innings, and then he ended up winning.
Is there any way that Kentucky gets out of Baton Rouge and goes to Omaha? Is there any way that it happens? I know you're going to break it down for us, but is that possible at all?
It's absolutely possible. Let's not forget that Kentucky went in there and gave them the fight of their life as far as a home series was concerned. Of course, Arkansas did as well, but nobody has gone into Baton Rouge and played as well as Kentucky did during the year. So this is, the rematch. It was tightly contested. LSU won 2 out of 3, 2 one-run games. I believe there was an extra inning game involved in that, but Kentucky is rolling right now. Again, I think one of the neatest stories is when we talk about transfers coming in and doing something that they've never done before. But Hunter Gilliam, the transfer from Longwood, senior, never experienced postseason play. I'm not even sure he actually played in the Big South Conference tournament during his time at Longwood. Now he's being a star in the regionals, and he's got a chance to do the same thing in the super regionals. But he had home run, 8 RBIs on the weekend for Kentucky. The staff threw 2 shutouts. Don't forget that. They had to win 3 consecutive elimination games as well, 41-7 strikeout to walk ratio on the weekend. So they're in a very, very good way right now. And I think they can give LSU a fight. But guess what? Guess what's waking up? LSU's pitching staff is waking up, okay? Thatcher Hurd came in after Ty Floyd. Ty Floyd only got to throw a couple of innings because of weather, and so that's really been the soft spot for LSU is that long-to-middle relief. And what do? They give Thatcher Hurd the ball, and he just rolled, absolutely dominated. So I'm sure that the fans in Baton Rouge are paying close attention to that. And by the way, we have to talk about Paul Skeens one more time, right? Complete game, 12 punch-outs, no walks. His 123rd pitch was 101 miles an hour. He threw a complete game on 124 pitches, 123rd pitch, 101. I don't know of anybody in this world that can honestly do that, including big leaguers.
I mean, that might have been the second most impressive thing that was on the mound was that pitch. The first most impressive thing, can y'all guess? The mustache.
Oh, okay.
It is a clean mustache, but no, I'm sorry to drop that bomb on you.
Clean one too. They all got it going on, don't they?
Mustaches are live and loud in college baseball. Darren, I know you have one more question before I jump in, so go ahead and hit it. I
love the stash question, but I've been biting my tongue the whole time. Oral Roberts.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Oral Roberts.
21.
Like in the world of baseball, ever, I would have called everyone liars if they said they ever thought those two teams. And Waz has done an incredible job. He's got a chance of getting them to the World Series. I certainly am biased as a Pac guy, but Oral Roberts out of the Summit. It's Coach Ryan Fulmer, the job he has done. I can't stop saying Oral Roberts versus Oregon.
Yeah, I got to publicly apologize to them because we never ranked them in the top 25. We watched them for the last 6 weeks of the season. They're 49-11, okay? And yes, they don't play in a very good league, okay? We can be, clear with that, but they went 23-1 in the Summit League, right? And so I'm publicly apologizing for not taking them more seriously than we did. But they swept through the Stillwater Regional, right? I mean, if you look at Oklahoma State, Washington, and Dallas Baptist, and then you see Oral Roberts, do you think Oral Roberts wins a game if you aren't following what they did this year? Of course we don't. But this guy literally was the savior for Oral Roberts. Cade Denton, right-handed pitcher. 3 saves in 3 games, okay? He went 4 innings pitched, gave up 1 run, 1 walk, 7 punch-outs. And for the year, he had 31 appearances, 15 saves, a 75-9 strikeout to walk ratio. So Cade Denton literally saved that series for them, okay? But let's be real. Oral Roberts is an awesome story. They're obviously a legit club. They can really swing it in the middle, and they just piece it together. They play like a club that has something to prove, and that's dangerous. So, but Waz told me, I talked to Waz at length about the Oregon club in the fall, and he told me he thought that they could slug with anybody, and if they could figure out the pitching, then they would be able to make a run to Omaha. Well, we really strongly doubted him at the beginning of the year because they were pitching great, but they weren't hitting at all. The cool thing about this is that they figured out a way. They've used 10 freshmen on the mound this year, and they've gotten them in and out, gotten them experience. And you know what? They're confident. They're no longer freshmen anymore, right? They've been through the Pac-12 tournament, which they won, and they won a regional. So now they're basically experienced guys like anybody else. And let's not forget Riku Nishida. Nishida he batted 500 in the regional and set the tone at the top of that lineup. So that's going to be a great series, and it's exciting to see that super regional in Oregon.
Who are you taking in that series?
Man, I tell you what.
By the way, Oral Roberts dares you to pick against them.
Who are you taking?
They dare you.
Oh, my goodness. You put me on the spot, Hunter. I'm going Oregon Ducks. Sorry.
Oh, no. They took down Vandy, so I don't think it's a bad choice.
Yeah, and they're playing their best baseball at the right time. Won the Pac-12 tournament. It's just going to be a really, really tough place to go into and win, 2 out of 3 for Oral Roberts. But they're going to get in the fight, and I bet it's going to be a great 3 games if it gets to 3.
Go ahead, Daron. I think you had one more.
No, I was just going to comment. Riku Nishida is worth the watch. I've seen him in the pack all year long. He is from Japan. He's not a player that, grew up, in Oregon, but he's literally an entertaining, passionate player to watch. He's a slapper in softball, but he's a guy that could also hit a double off the wall like a left-handed power hitter. So he's worth the price of admission on its own. But I know, Hunter, what's our time? We have time for like 1 or 2 more.
All right. I got one more. And I know there's just too much content right now. We talked with Indiana State. They hosted a regional. They dominated a regional. And now they're meeting TCU. Talk a little bit about what Indiana State showed you. Were they as athletic as they said?
Yeah.
Obviously so. But who are you taking, TCU, Indiana State? And before you pick that, I want to hear just kind of Indiana State and their regional appearance.
Okay. Well, let me start by, kudos to their entire athletic department. They did a great job hosting the regional. Their fans turned out. It was a tremendous atmosphere. Now, why aren't they hosting the super regional? You know why? Because for 51 straight years, they've hosted the Indiana Special Olympics there. And their athletic department staff is already committed to making that happen for awesome athletes in themselves, right, that play for the Special Olympics. So they didn't let something like the Super Regional overshadow, what really matters in life. So that tells me a lot about that athletic department, a lot about that town. So that's a really cool story, right? Now, the unfortunate part is, yes, that means that Indiana State has to go on the road, but they swept that regional, beat Iowa back-to-back, went 24-3 in the Missouri Valley Conference. They're a deep and dangerous lineup. I kind of dove into this a little bit. They had 8 different players register multiple RBI games, okay, in just a 3-game series. So that tells you the depth. Their 8-hole catcher, Grant McGill, he had 7 RBIs by himself, batting down in the 8-hole. So beyond that, they have 10 pitchers that have registered double-digit appearances on the year. So if you can go 10 deep with guys that you obviously trust, that's pretty special. So Indiana State is for real. They've proven it. They win a regional. But good grief, do you really want to have to run into TCU right now, as we've already talked about? So that's going to be scary. But you know what? That's why you play the games, because anything can happen.
You done, Hunter? You got more?
Is it TCU the pick?
I wouldn't mess with TCU right now. They look like they could possibly be the best team in the country.
I think you could make an argument that TCU could win the whole thing after this weekend.
They're playing their best ball at the right time. And
it's dangerous.
Insanity as far as the offense is concerned. You don't go into Arkansas and do what they did. I mean, they did damage all weekend long. And really, I don't want to say embarrassed, but you don't put up the types of runs that they put up.
20?
Yeah, I mean, it's just insane. So, when you got a guy doing something like Trey Richardson does, it just, sooner or later, you feel like opponents are going to say, we're not going to let this guy beat us. And there he goes, boom, another bomb. So it's real raw bat speed, and it's absolutely scary. Kind of reminds me of young Hunter Pence back in the day.
I mean, he's definitely not Hunter Pence, because this dude has just got a perfectly pure swing. He's hitting oppo bombs. It's athletic. It's speedy. Kind of I hate to say like a Mookie Betts because it's like pop that you don't necessarily expect, and it's speed and it's athleticism.
Oh, yeah.
It's impressive.
No doubt.
Thank you, Craig. Preview
Absolutely,
the World Series
guys.
for us next week. Will you do that?
Absolutely. I'll be here. Y'all have a great rest of the week.
Stuff. Yeah, we
Take
will,
care.
man. That's incredible. Hunter, what'd you think? How do we do in this show?
Man, I'm juiced. It was good. I loved it. Thank you so much, Cozy. Can't wait to watch the Super Regionals. And it's just the best time in baseball.
It 100% is. We want to thank Kerrick Jackson. We celebrate him, and he's rolling up his sleeves and going right to work. And Marty Smith, who's been rolling up his sleeves for 3 decades, he's finally won the hardware at Grand Junction, College of Central Florida. What a great show. We'll see you next week. Perfect Game College Baseball.